What's up, everyone? This is our first episode of our podcast. We're taking a huge risk here, trying out something new. This is the 90 Mile podcast where we're talking everything football, except for Dan Snyder. We're not going to touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Yep, no.
He touches his
No
cheerleaders
Dan
with 10
Snyder.
feet poles. We're not getting into it.
Whoa. Yep, no,
Sorry,
can't talk about
that's
it.
That's all we're saying. So, today we're doing our first ever episode. It's a little bit generic, but it was Adam's idea, so obviously it's gonna be generic.
Well, you, Jish.
Well, I'm Jish, and that's Adam. If you didn't already tell, so, for our first topic today, we're just gonna be doing our top fives of every position. If you like this video, please, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell. It really improves the algorithm. So I've been told this is my first ever YouTube video. I'm sure it's Adam's. Oh, he's bugging out.
Yeah. I just want to specify this is for this year only, not for career or past couple years. This year only. So some players who are on this would not be on it if it meant for their career.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Do you want to begin or should I?
I've talked a lot. Let's have you begin with your crappy ass quality.
Got it. Okay, so my quarterbacks I've got at number 5. Some people might say this is too high. Some people may say it's too low. Tom Brady. He has a lot of talent around him, which is what's to me not stopping him from going higher on this list. But he still threw for 40 touchdowns and 3rd for passing yards. So he should definitely deserve to be on the list.
Okay.
For 4, I got Watson. Most passing yards, but compared to other people on this list, he's lower with the touchdowns with only 33. And, well, he just couldn't win games. And to be fair, it wasn't his fault. But guys like Brady and Rodgers, they find ways to win games, which Watson is still learning to do with, like, Brady and Rodgers, they know how to win games with less talent around them. But Watson is still young, and he needs to learn how to do that. For 3, I got Patrick Mahomes. Now, the reason why I put him at 3 is because he was 2nd in passing yards and 3rd for passing touchdowns with 38. But this year specifically, he didn't run the ball as much as he could, which I don't blame him. He's too good to be risk hurting him, which is why I put Josh Allen at number 2 with 37 touchdowns and touchdown to interception ratio lower than Mahomes, and he ran for more touchdowns and more yards, which was to me a big reason why I put him above. And number 1, we got our MVP, or soon to be MVP, Aaron Rodgers with 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. You can't do better than that.
Well, I'm glad that you had Rodgers at 1. That's probably the least controversial thing you said. Tom Brady at number 5. You kidding me? How I could put me in a Bucs uniform. Give me number 12. I'm throwing in Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk. You could say he's past his prime, but if it's not Gronk, it's Cameron Brate, it's OJ Howard, it's Antonio Brown. You're putting Tom Brady at 5. I know he had great numbers. I know he was 3rd in the league in passing. Jameis Winston led the league in passing, bro. Come on.
Look, Godwin was off and on with the injuries. Same with Evan, played a lot, but he was uninjured a lot, injured for most of the games and just played through it. And AB was suspended for half the year. Like that's why I didn't put him higher, but he had to been on the list with 40 passing touchdowns.
Listen, man, I think you're a little bit too much of a stat nerd. And I think that you're missing some of the nuances of the game here. I wouldn't expect anything less from a Giants fan like yourself. By the way, I'm an Eagles fan, as you can see, and he's a Giants fan, hence the name 90 Mile. I thought that would be obvious, but I guess we had to explain it, especially to a small-minded Giants fan like this. But anyway, let me get into my better top 5, and it's similar. It's similar. And number 5 is going to surprise you, Adam. Number 5 you're not ready for. I was debating. I was going back and forth. Should it be Ryan Tannehill? Should it be Kyler Murray? Should it be Tom Brady? I did consider Tom Brady, but then I'm like, no. He's a system quarterback. Come on. Greatest of all time, but a system quarterback.
If you say Matt Ryan,
no, not Matt Ryan.
Or Herbert.
Number 5 is Justin Herbert.
Up there this year, but
Number 5 is Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's throwing for 4,300 yards. with Anthony Lynn as his head coach. Anthony Lynn's a fine head coach. He's
No,
not
he's
the
not.
type. He's not the type to have Justin Herbert throw for 4,300 yards. I thought going into the season Justin Herbert would be a bust. Justin Herbert proved everybody wrong. With who? He had Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Who else? Hunter Henry? Come on.
Eckler for like half the year.
Eckler was hurt for the longest time. He had like
Yeah,
Justin
that's right,
Jackson and
half the year.
Joshua Kelly as his running backs. Justin Herbert was that entire team, willed them to victory against teams like the Raiders. Cut it really close against the Bills. Had a great game against the Dolphins. You know, these are top tier defenses. Well, not the Raiders, obviously, but these are top tier defenses that Justin Herbert, as a rookie, comes in and does what he does, breaks the record that was held by Baker Mayfield. Come on, man. How is he not in your top 5? Number 4, I have your number 2. I have Josh Allen at number 4. I think Josh Allen made tremendous strides, and he definitely was instrumental in leading his team to victory, and I give him most of the success for the Bills' improvement this year. But he was kind of, as much as we hate to admit, he was in a little bit of an easy division. When you have the Patriots in that division, you have the Jets in that division. I mean, the Dolphins were good this year, and he did drop 50 on the Dolphins. I'm not going to say Josh Allen. It was very hard. It was splitting hairs between the top 4, I would say. But Josh Allen is my number 4. Number 3, I have Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is my number 3 because even though he had the entire team spit in his face, trade away his best target, he's still throwing for the most yards in the NFL. Not to mention he has so much poise in the pocket no matter what. I watched him play on Thanksgiving against the Lions. Holy crap, dude. He made Will Fuller look like Jerry Rice. And he has a fossil at running back. He's got the worst running back in the NFL in David Johnson. Duke Johnson, who catches passes, isn't really good. He has no running game, no defense. Deshaun Watson is the entirety of this Texans poverty franchise. You trade Deshaun Watson to the Dolphins win the Super Bowl. I believe that. 2, we got Mahomes. I didn't put Mahomes at 1 because of the Dolphins game. I watched that game. It did not look good. It's literally that one game. Otherwise, he probably would be ahead of Rodgers. I would probably consider Mahomes the MVP. And of course, you might say he's a system of that offense. You might say he runs that offense. Because, I mean, Alex Smith was in that offense and couldn't do what Mahomes did. And that's the difference between an average quarterback and an elite quarterback. And Mahomes is an elite quarterback. And number 1, obviously, we can agree it's Aaron Rodgers. And I don't need to explain myself.
Yeah. Okay. Herbert, I wanted to put him in my top 5. I wanted to put him over Brady. I just felt the numbers weren't there. And then with Watson, you're forgetting Brandon Cooks had a career year. Will Fuller was balling out before
every team.
Brandon
Cooks, if he was truly an elite wide receiver, he'd stay with the team for more than 2 years.
That's not true. People. Randy Moss went to 4 different teams.
Okay, but
Brandon Cooks had a great year. Will Fuller was doing great before he got suspended.
Brandon Cooks' longest tenure was with New Orleans. Do you even remember when he played for New Orleans?
But this is still the best. Yeah, but this was still Brandon Cooks' best year. Will Fuller was balling out before he got suspended, and around the time where Will Fuller got suspended, David Johnson was balling out. David Johnson was averaging 20 fantasy points per week from week 13 to week 17.
Oh my God, we're talking about fantasy points. You get 6 fantasy
points.
But
I'm just saying.
Touchdown. You can score 2 1-yard touchdowns in the game. You have 12 fantasy points. That says nothing to me.
No.
Nothing.
No, anyway. I'm saying the players around Watson were still playing well. It was their defense that killed him. And that's why I didn't want to have him that high. Because he couldn't find the way to win games.
I'm glad that you mentioned that Will Fuller did get suspended. That was his best target.
Yeah.
He had his arm chopped off with DeAndre Hopkins trade. Then he had his other arm chopped off with Will Fuller. Now he's running around with just legs. Obviously he's a quarterback. I'm making a hyperbole here. And now he's got who to throw to? Kiki Cutie? Brandon Cooks?
Kiki Cutie did ball out.
Of course he balled out because Deshaun Watson is his quarterback. You put any other quarterback. You put who's their backup? Brandon Weeden? Who's their backup right now? I don't even know who their backup.
AJ McCarron.
You put AJ McCarron in? The Texans don't win a game. Deshaun Watson willed them to even 4 victories. It's miraculous with how Bill O'Brien managed that team and Romeo Crennel. I mean, God bless his soul, but he's not a coach who's going to lead you to a winning season. But
I don't think you can put him over Josh Allen.
I think you can. I think Josh Allen has an incredible coaching staff around him, and Stephon Diggs. He's got John Brown. He's got Cole Beasley, who was an All-Pro. How? That's a conversation for another day. How Cole Beasley was an All-Pro despite not even cracking like 1,000 yards. But whatever. I
No,
digress.
Cole Beasley's stats were nuts this year, but we'll go back. Okay, running backs. Do you want to take the lead for this?
Sure, I'll take the lead for this. At 5, my running back list, there isn't too many hot takes. There is one that you might disagree with. At number 5, I have Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones was an incredible running back. He refused to go down. I was debating as to whether or not to have Kareem Hunt in my list, but I looked at his stats and they weren't as good as I thought, as I remembered them being. I mean, just from a energy standpoint, Kareem Hunt, and like what he brought to the team while Nick Chubb was away. Even when Nick Chubb came back, his production was incredible, and I think Nick Chubb's probably the best running back of the team, but in 2020, Kareem Hunt did better. But he's not even on my top 5, so I don't even know why I'm talking about him.
Mm.
Aaron Jones, even despite missing some games, was vital for that offense. And I think that without Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have as good of a season as he has, because now you have defenses having to worry about Aaron Jones, who was, I think, a top 5 running back in 2020. At number 4, I have Alvin Kamara. Now, I know you probably have him higher, but I mean, he's an incredible running back. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball. It just seemed like he did more of the latter than the former. I know he had the 6 touchdowns in one game against the putrid Minnesota defense, but that was one outlier compared to the rest of the season, where I think he only cracked 100 yards only one other time throughout the rest of the season. He's a great receiving back, and he is a great running back, but there were reasons why Latavius Murray did steal some snaps from him, and I that might be inconsistent with Aaron Jones, who had Williams on his team as well, and Dylan stealing snaps, you might say, but Jones was also dealing with some injuries. In 2020, I think 5 is Jones, 4 is Kamara, and 3 is James Robinson. James Robinson did so much as an undrafted free agent with nobody else. Brian Linder as a center, sure. Who else they got? Andrew Norwell? Come on. No. James Robinson was the
DJ
only reason
Shark
that
and
offense.
Laviska Shenault.
Okay, yeah, those are wide receivers. I'm talking about like on the old line. I think James Robinson did better than Leonard Fournette ever did in Jacksonville, even his rookie year. I think James Robinson was better than most of the running backs in this league. Took everybody by surprise, and he's got to be. Trevor Lawrence has got to be very happy that he's going to have a running back like James Robinson in the NFL. At number 2, I have Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, I mean, there's so little you have to say about him. He's just a mountain of a man, can take an entire team on his back. 2,000 yards, unheard of. Second time a Titans running back ever did that. Did it in a completely different way than Chris Johnson did, but that's another story. Yeah, he's just a monster of a man. The only thing he isn't number one, the only reason he isn't number one is because he doesn't have the receiving qualities. Number 1 is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook was the entirety of the Vikings offense. I believe he's the reason why Justin Jefferson had a great season, because everybody had to 100% sell out to stop that run, no matter what, because Dalvin Cook would cook you. Dalvin Cook alone beat the Green Bay Packers, who are the best team in the NFL right now. He alone put the Vikings on his back, said, Kirk, I love you, but I got to take the team on my back right now, and we're going to beat the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau. Dalvin Cook did that. Dalvin Cook was that entire offense. He's the only reason why their offense even looked salvageable later in the season, I must say. And he's the best running back in 2020.
Okay, so James Robinson, I do agree he had a great year. I just don't think he's top 5. I think he's right below it, but I just don't. I just think, like, again, he had no one around him,
He was
but
top
I
5 in
just
rushing,
feel they're
Mr. Stat Boy.
okay. Just wait till you see what I have. But Dalvin Cook, I do agree. Yeah, you can make the argument that he's
I
better than
did.
Henry,
I did.
but to me, like you said, he was the number one. You said he was the number one. The only person on that Vikings offense, but
Hey, hang
Justin
on, hang on,
Jefferson and
hang on.
Adam Thielen.
I didn't say that. I
Jefferson
said
Jefferson
he was
balled
probably the reason
out.
why they. Listen. I know. I know they balled out. I didn't say that Dalvin Cook was the only one. I said he's the reason why they balled out. I think because when you're a defensive back, I played DB in middle school, so I think I have some proper experience. When you're running the ball the entirety of the game and having so much success with it, as a DB, your eyes kind of shift towards the backfield a little bit. And, if you have a good route runner like Adam Thielen or Justin Jefferson, if they're running like a little crossing route in a play action, how do you defend that if you're looking in the backfield? I think Dalvin Cook was the reason why that Vikings offense even had any lifeblood, with their
Okay.
revolving door at offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I do agree with that, but I just feel that but later in the season when Jefferson and Thielen started they started throwing the ball more. I just don't think Cook was that beneficial. Like against the Bears, Cook was doing nothing, and they found a way to win in the first game because of Thielen and Jefferson.
You know what? I can respect it. That was a good Bears defense, but I respect that. I can see all arguments. I just think Dalvin Cook's the best running
Yeah,
back in
so
2020.
that's what I'm saying. It's definitely like the
It's
top
definitely
two is
close.
definitely arguable. It's so close that you can argue. Okay, so my number five was not on your top five, and I feel that you definitely thought about him. You just didn't realize that. Like, but I got to go with my rookie running back Jonathan Taylor. He number three in rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. And if you watch the games, he wasn't getting the ball that much in the beginning. And when he actually got the ball, he was playing so well that he went to number three in rushing yards. He single-handedly carried the Colts offense for the second half of the season. Number four. Now this guy was also not on your top five list, but his counterpart was Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, when
That wasn't on my
healthy,
list,
best
actually.
running back in the league. Nick, yeah. Nick
We're
Chubb,
talking about.
when healthy, is the best running back in the league. He had 12 rushing touchdowns and over 1,000 yards without while missing a couple games. And he's just such a vital part of that Browns offense. I say if they didn't have him at all, if he was the best of the team, but without him, I don't think they make the playoffs. I'm saying that right now. Okay, number three, Alvin Kamara. I felt that he is the best receiving back in the league, and this year I think kind of proved it with this lack in the running game. Which he had 16 rushing touchdowns, lack in the running game because 6 of those touchdowns were in that one game, which is why he's not higher. But his receiving attributes are just so good that that just bumps him up a couple spots. Now, my number two is Dalvin Cook. We all argued about this earlier, and I do believe when all said is done, Cook is the better running back than Derrick Henry. But the reason why I put him below Derrick Henry is because Derrick Henry had the most rushing yards and most rushing touchdowns, and Derrick Henry was the eighth player all times, eighth player since the merger to have 2,000 rushing yards in a season. I don't think I do like Derrick Henry doesn't have the receiving aspect, but rushing with 2,000 yards in a season, I don't think you can put a running back over that.
I can respect that. Jonathan Taylor at 5 is very interesting. I do respect it, but I mean,
Yeah,
just in the first half of the season, he did nothing. He was considered like a bust by his own fan base. But I think it was a good job
yeah,
by Sirianni later in the year of getting him more involved in the run game. I think that's a respectable choice, especially that last game of the season against Jacksonville. Oh my God, that was an incredible game
yeah,
that he had. Um,
yeah.
Chubb. I mean, I was debating Chubb too, but I think he just missed too many games for me
Yeah.
to put him on that list. I
That
know he led the league in yards per carry, second place Miles Sanders, but he led the league in yards per carry. I just think that it's not only him. They would have to take him out and put in Kareem Hunt. I think I didn't have Kareem Hunt on my list, obviously, but I feel like it's definitely a two-headed monster, and you could even put both of
yeah.
them in the top. You can put both of them in the top 5, and I don't think that would necessarily
Oh
be
yeah.
too arguable. Um,
Yeah.
can't believe you didn't have
Okay.
James Robinson though. James Robinson did it all for the. I know it didn't
I
account.
wanted to put him up.
I
I,
know it
I
didn't
wanted to
account
put
as much.
Robinson in there, but
Yeah,
I couldn't. I wanted to, but I couldn't. Okay. Remember, do you want me to just take receivers because you started up first with running backs?
sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, my number five. Now, this one you're gonna be in. You're not gonna agree with this. DeAndre Hopkins. Now, I'm the numbers guy. He was 1,400 yards receiving, but only 6 touchdowns, which is great. But I think they really got him to he's their stud receiver, but they wanted him in the red zone, and that's where he did not do as well as he should have. I also felt that when Kyler Murray started to get hurt, especially in that 49ers game where Kyler Murray was hurt, DeAndre Hopkins should have taken control of the game like what he used to be able to do with the carousel of quarterbacks in Houston, but he just didn't have it this year. And maybe it's a new system, maybe with the weird offseason not be able to train with Murray. But I just felt that Hopkins still a great receiver, but this year he I don't think you can put him over my other guys. Now, my number 4, DK Metcalf. Absolute specimen athletically. 10 receiving touchdowns, 1,300 yards. And yes, he did have Russell Wilson as his quarterback, who in the beginning of the season was great, but DK Metcalf is just like you just can't guard him, anyone. And before you say Jalen Ramsey can, look what happened in the playoff game. He had over 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Like DK Metcalf, is just such a threat that it opens up everything else for the Seahawks offense. And I don't think anyone can guard him one-on-one consistently. Tyreek Hill at number 3. 15 touchdowns, and might I add, it should be 16 if they challenge that play in the Broncos game where he dropped it and then caught it on the way down while being tackled, but he didn't think he caught it, and 1,200 yards. And he had Mahomes and Kelsey and changed everything. But if you look at that Bucks game specifically, when he's playing well, nobody can guard him. He's too fast, too athletic. His route running ability really improved since his rookie year. He's just too good to he just has to be number 3. For
He's
number
not
2,
top 5 in fathers though.
at number 2 we got Stephon Diggs. Saved my ass in fantasy this year, but he led the league in catches, receiving yards, and had 8 touchdowns, not leading the league. But he was just such a huge part in that Bills offense. Josh Allen had such a big leap, but that's a large part in that coaching staff bringing in Diggs, which was a phenomenal trade for both sides. But for this, Diggs just completely changed the atmosphere in Buffalo from being a defense and run team to a passing attack. And he number 2. And the only reason why he's not number 1 is because Devontae Adams was just such an insane year. 18 receiving touchdowns while missing 2 games. 1,300 receiving yards, close to 1,400. And he was just such a beast this year. Like, you could put up, he could be double teamed half the time and he'll still find a way to get into the end zone. He was just too good this year. Couldn't stop him.
I cannot agree with you about DK Metcalf at all.
Yeah.
This isn't even me being like salty or anything. He got shut down against great defenses in the. I know you say the playoff game, whatever, but against the other 2 games against the Rams, he did diddly poo. He would drop open touchdown passes. He has all the. I think he's a great wide receiver. I think nobody can guard him, but he sometimes gets in his own way, and that cannot happen as a wide receiver. I mean, actually, no. Jalen Ramsey can guard him. What am I even saying? I'm showing the same cognitive dissonance that you show every single day. Jalen Ramsey can guard this man for every freaking day of the week, bro. And you're talking, and he drops like wide. Oh my god, I can't even go on against the Eagles. He had an incredible game, but still would have had another touchdown if he didn't drop it in the end zone. Against I forget which team. He had it like wide open the back of the end zone, drops it. You cannot do that.
That was the one where he caught a bullet to the mouth. Russell Wilson threw a bullet and hit him right in the. But
he's an NFL wide receiver. You think Devontae Adams uses that as an excuse when he has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback? Come on! And you're putting him top 5. I don't care if he gets a bullet to the mouth. You catch those if you're a top 5 receiver in the NFL.
DK Metcalf, he was just such a big part of that Seahawks offense. And the stats show it too that he had a great year. And he's still a young receiver. He's still learning, but he still is just such a beast. Like, you can't guard him. He's too athletic. And Jalen Ramsey, they had so much safety help. So okay, we're going to get into this later, but I am not a big fan of Jalen Ramsey. I think he's overrated. But let me hear your top 5 receivers.
My top 5 receivers? So, at number 5, this guy made a huge leap in 2020. We're looking at 2020. This dude was incredible. And I know it's because Julio got injured a lot, but Calvin Ridley is my number 5 wide receiver in the NFL. I think Calvin Ridley had such a phenomenal year, and it was probably the most quiet phenomenal year ever because he was on a terrible team with an interim head coach who's a defensive coordinator calling the plays. And what Calvin Ridley was able to do with a semi-declining Matt Ryan and not a putrid Falcons offense, but a Falcons offense that's running game was kind of it was very spotty with Todd Gurley at the helm. This man kind of put the team on his back, if you will. He would put up monster stats, and nobody would talk about it because he was playing for a dumpster fire. So I think Calvin Ridley is top 5 in the league. I put D Hop at number 4, kind of for the same reasons you did. He would disappear at times, but when he was on, and you could not guard him. I think he was what DK Metcalf was in your mind, because DeAndre Hopkins, he might have had 4 less touchdowns than DK, but he still was phenomenal for that team, turned that team into a playoff contender. I still think that if Kyler Murray didn't get hurt, they would have been in the postseason, no question. They probably could have beaten. They could have at least given the Saints a run for their money in the wildcard round, unlike the Bears did. I agree with you. Tyreek is my number 3 wide receiver. Tyreek is my number 3 wide receiver because you cannot. Despite being in such a great system, no matter what system you put him in, he's going to get open. He's going to score so many touchdowns. And I also looked at that Buccaneers game where he had 200 yards in the first quarter. Against an NFL defense. He can easily put the team on his back and say, "Come on, let's go." I think about that play that sealed the game against Cleveland. He isn't just a speed guy as everybody thought he was. He's actually a legitimate wide receiver. One, and I think he's the third best of 2020. And 2, I put Devontae Adams. I put Devontae Adams at number 2. He's been building his resume for so long, and this was finally the year he put it all together. And the main reason I kept him at a number 1 is because he has the MVP throwing in the ball, and who else is he going to throw the ball to? Tunyon? Who else is Rodgers going to throw the ball to? Rodgers might run the ball, but Rodgers has basically only Devontae Adams. And Devontae Adams can still get open. He's incredible at that. He's incredible at route running. And he gets open, but he has an MVP who can get him the ball each and every single time. And number 1, I put Stephon Diggs. And I put Stephon Diggs at number 1 because I believe he single-handedly was he almost single-handedly was responsible for Josh Allen making the next step and becoming an MVP candidate, putting the Bills offense to be one of the scariest in the league, getting them to be 13-3. He was making plays left and right, catches left and right, touchdowns everywhere, clutch plays against the Cardinals. Oh, by the way, D-Hop, he could solely be on the top 5 alone, only for the Hail Murray, but I digress. Stephon Diggs proved why he was worth a first-round pick, and I think both teams won that trade. And I think it's very interesting that neither of us put Justin Jefferson on the list, and I didn't put him on the list because I think his success is mostly due to Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
I think there were some snubs from both of our lists too. Like, neither of us put Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen had a great. I mean, he didn't have 1,000, but he had 100 receptions.
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans. Neither of us put on the list. I mean, he had a quiet year compared to his other years, so I gotta get that.
Yeah.
Well,
he was really had a quiet, great year.
Yeah, I mean, because Brady would throw a bunch of stupid picks, especially against the Rams. But yeah, I think both of our lists are respectable. We had basically the same top 3, except for DK Metcalf. That's a travesty. Ugh. All right.
Okay.
Guess we can go to tight end now.
Yeah, you take it.
All right. So for number 5, I was thinking about putting Logan Thomas, especially because he played so well with inconsistent quarterback play. I think Logan Thomas had a phenomenal year for what he was given. At number 5, I put Robert Tonyan. He had 11 touchdowns this year, and that's incredible. He went from being a no-name to being a red zone threat, and I think that's incredible. The only thing that knocked him down was he had very little receiving yards. He didn't have a lot of efficiency, but he was incredible in the red zone. He had that one monster game against Atlanta where he had 3 touchdowns. Tonyan was definitely he had a great year in 2020. I think he was the top 5 tight end, which breaks my heart because usually, Ertz would be in the top 5, but he had a terrible ass year. But I digress. Number 4, I put Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki had a weird year. He was really good in the beginning, took a little bit of a break, but then down the stretch he was a monster. He had Great. He had a good game against the Jets. He had great games down the stretch against the Bengals. He was definitely somebody who you had to have on your fantasy roster. I know I made fun of the fantasy points thing earlier. I think Mike Gesicki was number 4. I think he also did well with with two different quarterbacks, with both Tua and Fitz, and I think he definitely is one of the more underrated tight ends in the league. 3, I put Hawkinson. Hawkinson, I knew when he came out of the draft would be absolutely a beast in the NFL. And he's getting there. He isn't quite at beast territory. There weren't that many like incredible tight ends in the league this year, I must say. But I think he was number 3. He definitely had a phenomenal year for Matt Stafford. He was a Pro Bowler, and I think he is a contributor on that Lions offense, and he's probably going to be one of the only people coming back after Stafford said that he was leaving earlier tonight. 2 would put Darren Waller. Darren Waller's a beast. I mean, he's the best. He's one of the best receiving tight ends in the league this year. Um, obviously number 2 would belong to Kittle if Kittle was healthy this year. But Waller had a fantastic year. He had 200 yards one game. He was Derek Carr's number 1 favorite, even though he had speedsters and Ruggs and unlike Aguilar outside. And number 1 is obvious. I think he's probably number 1 on both of our lists. Travis Kelce. How are you going to finish like top 10 in receiving yards as a tight end?
Top three,
He's
I think.
yeah, top 3. I forgot. I don't know if he dropped out of the top 10 or not, but top 5 or not. But I don't know. At one point, he was top 3, and same thing with Tyreek. It's just it goes to show how there's been a Chiefs player in almost every single skill position so thus far. It's incredible.
Okay, so for my 5, as much as I wanted to put the New York Giants football tight end Evan Ingram, I couldn't. He's trash.
He is
But
very trash. He single handedly
yeah,
kept the Giants out of the playoffs, or shall I say,
mm-hmm.
double
Nope.
handedly. Oh, oh.
Uh, see, your jokes would be funny except for the fact that he has no hands. Uh, okay. So there's nothing really I could complain about your list because mine's very similar. There's only one difference. Number 5, I have Hawkinson. He had a great year, but like like you said, like he has a lot of potential. He's just not there yet, and I want to put him higher, but I just don't think he deserves to be higher than the guys that I put on the list. Number 4, I have Gesicki. Like you said, phenomenal player. Like was off and on, but phenomenal tight ends in the receiving game. Also a pretty good blocker. And to be fair, let's be honest, we all know he never knew who was throwing him the ball. But first it's Fitzmagic, then it's Tua, then back to Fitzmagic. Halfway through the game, you put in Tua in. Like they were all over the place with quarterbacks. And Gesicki still had a good year. Number 3, I have Robert Tonyan, 11 receiving touchdowns. I think that's great. Like you said, he didn't have much of the yards, but he still was a great blocking tight end. Still had 11 touchdowns, which is very hard to do, especially if I believe he was an undrafted free agent.
He should have been a Pro Bowler.
I'm not sure. Yeah, he should have
He should have
gotten
been a
over
Pro
Evan
Bowler.
Ingram. He definitely should have gotten over Evan Ingram. Number 2, Darren Waller, like you said, great tight end, but like number 1 is Travis Kelce,
You
who's in a
can't put
league of
anyone
his
ahead of
own.
Kelsey this year.
Like if you were to do tight ends and receivers combined, Kelce would still be in that list for top 5. He was just that dominant this year. You can't stop it. Like, yeah.
Man, it's a bad year for tight ends when Tunyon is on both of our top 5s.
Yeah.
It's a bad year for tight ends, man. I mean,
Now,
like Ertz didn't do well. Kittle was hurt all year. Kyle Rudolph fell off a cliff. I mean, Jerry Cook, I was thinking about him, but I feel like he's more of a product of the system as well. Dan Campbell was an incredible tight ends coach.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Let me go to D tackles. Now, for D tackles, there's a couple players that were listed as defensive end, but they primarily played defensive tackle, so I put them in this list. Number 5, I've got Chris Jones. 8 sacks, I believe. That's what I have written down. He's just such a dominant piece in that Chiefs defense. Core piece. Him, Patrick Sorensen, and Tyrann Mathieu are like the main parts of that Chiefs defense. Without him, they probably would not have won that playoff game against the Browns with Mahomes going out because their defense definitely stepped it up when Mahomes got hurt. But Yeah, so he's my number 5. Number 4 is Stephon Tuitt. Uh, Key piece in that Steelers defense, was such a great player. 11 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. Only problem for me is that he was nowhere to be found in that playoff game. With a lot of players on the defense were nowhere to be found in that playoff game, which really hurt to watch because I needed the Steelers to win. But okay, now number 3. Now this guy, you'll probably have him at number 2, but I'm going to DeForest Buckner. He is a phenomenal run stopper. And he had 10 sacks and 14 tackles for loss, which is phenomenal stats. Still a key piece in that Colts defense. Really helped that Colts defense make that extra step from last year to this year. But to me, I got to go Leonard Williams, the key piece in the New York Giants defense. Without Leonard Williams, Giants probably only win 2 games, if that much. He had 12 sacks, which is 6th in the entire league. 16 tackles for loss. Like, just a huge part in that Giants defense. Single-handedly helped them get close to making the playoffs, which is sad with 6 wins, but still. And then number 1, best defensive player in the league. Just an absolute beast. We got Aaron Donald. You can't say anything else. He's getting double teams, and he still has the high. Like, statistically, he's double teamed with the highest at the highest rate, but yet he still has the highest pressure rate, which is just insane, given that he's undersized.
Adam, what the hell is wrong with you? You're not going to put Fletcher Cox. I know I'm an Eagles fan, and I know much more about the Eagles than any other team in the league. How do you not put Fletcher Cox in a list of best interior defensive linemen of 2020 on your top 5 list? Are you on crack? What is wrong with you? Are you kidding me? Other than that, I mean, pretty similar lists, I must say. We do have pretty similar lists. But you leave Fletcher Cox out. He has 6.5 sacks, but that doesn't tell the whole story. You're looking at sacks as if they're like canon, as if that's the only thing that a defensive tackle does. Fletcher Cox is double teamed basically every single play. He's part of one of the greatest defensive lines in the league, and still gets double teamed, and still is probably our most productive defensive lineman, despite getting all the attention on him. When he was injured in that Dallas game, we were right out of it. That was it. Our season ended when Fletcher Cox's season ended. That's how important he is to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I try to keep my biases out. I try my best. But how? Go ahead.
I want to put him in that top 5.
Point.
But in too many games, I just didn't hear his name. I'm used to when I'm watching the games and watching him, I see him making great plays, and I see him, like, all they do is talk about. I didn't hear anything about it,
bro. He just takes the blocks from everyone else. You know whose name you heard? You heard Josh Sweat's name. You heard Javon Hargrave's name, because they got single team blocks because everybody was focused on clocks, and Cox still had like 7 sacks.
So you're saying Fletcher Cox is a top 5 because everyone else around him had better years.
Because of Fletcher Cox. And Cox.
No, but it's not just
had an incredible year.
He had a good year, but like your reasoning for putting him up there is not about his play, it's about everyone else's play. And I do agree, Fletcher Cox is arguably on that list, and he definitely, you can make the argument for better than a lot of those players. But I just didn't want to put him up there. I just didn't think he deserved it. Not this year. I don't think he had that it factor this year like he usually does.
It's clear you just did not watch Eagles football this year. Anyway, let's get into my list, which is superior to your list once again. Anyway, at number 5, somebody who you actually thought I would have at number 2, I have DeForest Buckner at number 5. He obviously had a top 5 year, no question about it. He just missed a few games, and of course the Colts defense completely collapsed. So they didn't completely collapse, but they kind of stopped working without him as well as they used to. Especially against games against Derrick Henry. The Colts were Derrick Henry's stomping ground this year. So Buckner definitely made a difference. At 4, I also had Leonard Williams. You're welcome, throwing you a bone. Leonard Williams, I think, single-handedly was a reason why they beat teams like the Seahawks, shut them down, even with Colt McCoy at quarterback. Leonard Williams was a beast this year, no doubts about it. And you guys better sign him back in free agency because he will want to contend. Except that would mean you probably would have a less shot of signing whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Number 3, I have Chris Jones because I think that sacks isn't the only thing you should look for in a defensive lineman. I think Chris Jones basically was their entire pass rush this year. Frank Clark had a down year. Uh, Chris Jones is carrying the whole Chiefs defensive line on his back and plays well while doing it. So I think having 8.5 sacks while missing a game speaks volumes. At 2, I have Fletcher. Fletcher Cox was the only reason our defense performed well whatsoever. I mean, without him, we collapsed. Collapsed without Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox was basically our entire defense this year, and our defense played well. Our defense played pretty well. I mean, of course, not in the secondary, but that's a different story when you only have Slay out there. I digress. I digress. I digress. And number 1 is Aaron Donald. I mean, that at
Yeah.
least you got right.
Okay. So with Fletcher Cox, yes, you can make the argument for top 5.
I did.
But
did.
I just don't think I don't think he's number 2. I can't like if you were to tell me if you put him low on the list, I wouldn't have a problem arguing. Like I wouldn't argue that. I would agree. But putting him at number 2, I don't think you can put him. I think Leonard Williams had a bigger impact. Same with DeForest Buckner, and same with Chris Jones. Now, don't get me wrong. You can definitely make the argument, but I just don't think number 2 is his spot.
Whatever.
Jish is tight. He's mad. You're tight
True.
right now.
I have a little bit of Eagles bias, I will admit, and they are the team
Oh, yeah,
I asked about, obviously. And you probably have Giants bias. You probably have James Bradbury on your corners.
Yeah, definitely.
And Blake
But I
Martinez
think he
in your
did deserve to be.
But whatever.
Yeah.
Let's go to I know you, Adam. Let's go to edge rushers.
Speaking about, I just want to say one thing about linebackers. I forget his name. I think it's Alex Singleton.
Incredible.
He had a great year.
Incredible. I didn't put him on. I didn't put him on my top 5.
I didn't put him on the list.
I was so.
I didn't put him on the top 5, but we gotta give him a shout. He as I hate saying this, but when I'm watching the games, like when the Eagles play the or when the Eagles play the Giants, like whenever the Eagles are in prime time, when I'm just watching the games. He's all over the place.
Don't talk about the owner.
Yeah, no. Like he's just all over the place.
I would say he is Tabasco sauce. I must say. And I think he's a free agent too, so we need to bring him back. I think he's very enthusiastic. I love Alex Singleton, breakout year.
I love his hair.
Yeah, he's a rock star, man. Canadian football legend. Anyway, let's go to edge rusher.
Oh, damn, Canadian.
Yeah, he was he was defensive player of the year in Canada. I think he definitely won a championship there. But yeah, he was originally a special teams guy. Injuries happen. Nick Gary sucks, so he got more snaps. Thank God we did something right. Edge rushers. So my edge rusher is full of hot takes. My top 5. And I probably did the most research for this one. At number 5, I have JPP. I think what Jason Pierre-Paul did this year for the Bucs defense definitely propelled them further. Former Giant, he lost his fingers. He still had an interception this year, which is crazy. On top of his incredible sack numbers. He had 2 interceptions this year on top of his sack numbers. Whoa, you're going crazy. Hello. Again with the cameras. Adam's Wi-Fi sucks, along with his takes. So I would like to apologize on behalf of him. But yeah, JPP is my number 5. I think he's underrated. I think Shaq Barrett got a little bit more attention because he came out of nowhere last year. But I think if it came down to it, if I had to choose between JPP and Shaq Barrett, and there was of course some good guys who missed the list, but I would rather get into the rest of my list before we move on. But JPP definitely was a top 5 player in top 5 edge rusher in 2020. JPP number 5. Number 4, you're gonna hate me. And here's more of my Eagles bias. It's Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham finally getting the recognition he deserves. Brandon Graham's been having so many good years for so long. Finally gets to everyone gets to see how well he did. He was selected to a Pro Bowl this year. He did so much for this Eagles defense. Probably, I wouldn't say as much as Fletcher Cox, but definitely damn near close to what Fletcher Cox did. I mean, I have so much to say about him. I'm so glad that he's finally getting the recognition he deserves. He had an incredible year, and yeah, he was a difference maker in the Dallas game, in the Pittsburgh game. You know, he does so much for this team that goes completely unnoticed, and I'm finally glad that he got recognition. Number 3 is Mr. Wrecking Ball himself, Miles Garrett, and that's a double entendre. You know what I mean. Knocking racists out since the day he was born. Um, Miles Garrett's just a force. He's a beast. He's absolutely. He proved why he should have been the number one overall pick. He had an incredible year with the Browns. I wouldn't. He was basically their secondary wasn't when they were depleted and whatnot. Whatever. When there was a bunch of moving parts, Miles Garrett was always consistently after the quarterback, making plays. And he's a beast. There's not much else I can say about him. Number two is Khalil Mack. Even in a year where the Bears defense was not as good as they used to be, I think Khalil Mack had still. I looked up his stats. I think he definitely had like around like double digit sacks, constantly double teamed, always got the attention, still had a productive year. And I think that is the mark of a great defensive player. He's always somebody who you have the game plan for on offense. And I know that's a tired trope, but I mean, definitely, that if you use it for anyone, it's Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is a game changer. And number one is T.J. Watt, and it's probably your number one too. He led the league in sacks. He was a standout on that incredible Pittsburgh defense. I don't see how you could not have him at number one.
Okay, so there's two things. One, Khalil Mack, great player, went quiet in too many games this year. Since his first year on the Bears, he was amazing. Last year and this year, he went quiet too often. That I just don't think you can put him at number two. And for Brandon Graham, that one, I don't know enough about it, but if like I'm not gonna argue much about it. He's not on my list, but I don't know enough about it to full on argue. For my list, I gotta go number 5, Trey Hendrickson, 14 sacks and 14 tackles for loss, and uh, the reason why his stats were amazing, but the reason why I didn't put him higher on the list is because I felt that it was the reason of other players on the team. I think they had a great secondary. There's Marcus Davenport, and I always forget his name, but like he Cam Jordan. He had a great year, but I just don't think statistically speaking, he had a great year. I just don't think you can put him higher over the other guys on this list. Number 4, I got Zadarius Smith.
I was close him on the list.
Yeah, him and Jared Alexander held that Packers defense together. He had my stats: 13 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. Just a complete game changer for that Packers defense, and I don't blame you for not putting him on your top 5. I think he deserves to be top 5. But there's what it is besides T.J. Watt, everybody else you can argue to where it's just not it. There's not much hot takes, crazy things. My number 3, JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, the one-handed monster. The one-handed monster. I when I was looking at the stats, I just saw across the board phenomenal year. I'm still bummed that the Giants traded him. I'm gonna be honest. They traded him a week after I met him. I met him at the NFL place in Times Square. I got his autograph. I saw his hand where it was missing 2 fingers, but yet it was the size of my face. The week later I found out he got traded. But yeah, 10 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, and 2 picks with one hand. Phenomenal year. Great player. My number 2, Myles Garrett. He had such an insane year, always applying pressure. He missed 2 games, but still had 12 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles. A key part in that Browns defense. Without him, Olivier Verdon did have a good year, but that's just because of Myles Garrett being Myles Garrett.
Great game against the Eagles.
Yeah. And then the number 1, TJ Watt, we talked about that, led league in sacks, 42 QB hits, 7 pass defense, and an interception against the Giants, which was such a great play by him. I don't know if you watched this. It was on Monday night.
I remember that. I do remember that.
He sees the screen coming, acts like he's going in for the tackle on Daniel Jones, to pass the rusher. jumps back and picks off the screen.
His
Or like
brother
the
did
quick, no, it's a
something
quick slam.
similar.
Quick
Yeah.
slant. It was
Wow.
just he's just such a dynamic player. Great pickup for the Steelers when they drafted him, and he is definitely going to be like his brother. Like in his prime, he's going to be close to JJ Watt and JJ Watt's prime.
Trey Hendrickson. Jesus Christ, dude. Can't believe you put
The
Trey
numbers
Hendrickson
don't.
on this.
The
The
numbers
numbers
don't
can
lie.
lie. The numbers
The
can
numbers
lie.
don't lie.
My
The
goodness.
numbers don't lie.
I do not care how many sacks he had. He was a product of that
It's
defense. I will hear nothing to the
the
contrary.
numbers don't lie, but they can be interpretive. But the numbers don't lie.
Whatever.
Okay,
I mean, yeah, it
number
was solid, whatever. Um oh, do you not was that your number 2?
who?
TJ Watt?
No, he's my number one.
Okay, good. I was about to say. I think it's
I
crazy. It's crazy how neither of
it,
us had like Calais Campbell on either, because you could put Campbell at D line or edge. We didn't
yeah.
have him there. He had a great year, and Chase Young we didn't put. Chase Young is completely overhyped. He's a product of hype. He was still incredible this year. He was a product of hype. Him and
Oh yeah.
I looked at his stats compared to Josh Sweat's stats. They're basic. Josh Sweat had more production on less snaps. It was crazy, but I
Can we just
digress.
take a moment to realize that no, not Joshua, Montez Sweat, the other,
Montez Sweat, I think, did better than Chase Young.
yeah, Montez Sweat on during the draft, he got screwed over badly. Remember,
Yeah, I do
at
remember
the
that.
combine, they found out he had a heart issue,
Heart
which
palpitation.
made him
That was
drop. And then
that wasn't at his that was like after the combine, because at the combine he put up like a
yeah,
4.41 4-yard dash, which
no,
is
but I remember finding out the morning of the draft, they found out that it was a miss.
yeah,
It was a wrong, whatever it's called.
MFL.
Like they messed up, and that he was completely healthy,
It
which
sucks.
made him
I
fall
mean,
from a top 10 pick all the way to the Washington football team at like 22 or something
they
like
had to
that.
trade back in 26. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a good edge rush class too. You had like Nick
Oh, it
Bosa, you
was
had Bryant
Josh
Burns,
Allen,
Montez Sweat, Josh Allen. Yeah, I mean, a bunch of these guys could
Max
have made.
Crosby, Max
Yeah,
Crosby,
much
a fourth round pick.
later on. I mean, if Bosa was healthy all year, he probably could have made the list. Who knows? But
Yeah.
now we can go to interior linebackers, and I'd like to hear your opinion first on that.
Okay, I got number 5, Blake Martinez.
I hate you.
Complete tackle. Oh come on! You can't say he's not a top 5.
Go ahead, keep
He
going, keep going.
complete beast in the run game and just tackling overall, 151 tackles, 3 sacks. Like he was just he was the main part of that Giants defense. Him, Leonard, Will, like great pickup for the Giants, but just such a good at cleaning up the run game and making sure there's none of them break out. Number 4, I got Darius Leonard, that leader of the Colts defense, absolute beast. His numbers, I didn't take a look at his numbers last year. Like his numbers overall didn't completely impress me, but he still just makes such a big impact. Like if you're looking at his numbers, 132 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Like great
Incredible.
year, but like I just don't know if you could put him over the other guys on this list. Uh, Fred Warner, again, phenomenal linebacker. The reason why he's so good, like this year his numbers kind of fell, but he's just such a big part in that 49ers defense, that 49ers culture. Like Aaron Rodgers said to himself, Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the league. I didn't put him at the best this year, but Fred Warner is just so good. And his impact, it doesn't always show with the numbers. Like this year, he had 125 tackles, but he still had 2 interceptions and 6 passes defense. So he's just good with in the passing game and in the running game defensively, that I put him over Darius Leonard because of that. Number 2, I got Bobby Wagner. He's always consistently a great player for the Seahawks defense. Without this, Seahawks defense was pretty bad this year, or like actually pretty inconsistent this year. But without Bobby Wagner, they would be the worst defense in history. He had 128 tackles, 3 sacks, 8 passes defend. Yeah, he's just an absolute beast. Now, my number 1, this one I don't know if you're gonna like this. Devin White. He is phenomenal. 140 tackles and 9 sacks, 4 passes defense, 2 forced fumbles. Had a great game in the playoff game against the Saints. Just an absolute beast. He's always all over the place. His speed, he's so fast that he's all over the place. He's just a game changer on that defense. And yeah, I put him at number 1 for linebacker.
I mean, wow, that was some list. Our lists are pretty different, I must say. Actually, I think we probably have the biggest discrepancy. I did have very some hot takes as my top two. Um, I mean, I can't really argue with it. There was so many good linebackers in the league this year. Like
Oh
Singleton,
yeah,
I couldn't put on the list. I didn't put Martinez on the list. Um, I don't know.
yeah. It's
I
just like all together.
I
It's
just didn't
just
think he
like
was. I didn't think he was better than the five guys I had. At number five,
yeah,
I have Eric Kendricks from the Vikings. I think he was one of the sole bright spots on that Vikings defense. He had a great game against the Panthers. He I don't know. Again, I looked at these people's stats. Stupid me didn't write them down, but I remember he had some impressive stats. He had some key picks. He was good in the run game, good in the pass game. I think he was just a good overall solid middle linebacker, and he's a leader on that Vikings defense. He has a pretty cool brother as well, I must say. Brother who doesn't pay his taxes. um, Four, I also put Darius Leonard. That was surprising that we both had Darius Leonard at four. Again, the stats aren't the best in the league, but the energy that he brings, completely, he was just another key piece in that incredible Colts defense this year. Darius Leonard definitely is deserving of a top five in 2020, as well as B-Wags, Bobby Wagner. He's my number three. Um, Same reasons you did as well. Bobby Wagner, I think, just isn't better than these top two guys were this year. And number two, this is gonna. Are you sitting? You got your water? Number two is Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith had an absolutely phenomenal year, breakout year. Him and Tremaine Edmonds isn't a top five linebacker. I'm not a delusional like Bills fan, but they both came out of the same draft class. They both had phenomenal years this year. Roquan Smith was making plays all over the field, just like he was projected to do out of college. Had a really high 130s tackle total, I think. Definitely was the probably a bigger piece on that Bears defense than Khalil Mack was this year, I must say, just for the amount of things that he did. Especially, that Kwiatkowski was gone and he had more of a role. They definitely unlocked him, and I think that he was a reason why the Bears did as good as they did with Chuck Pagano as their defensive coordinator. And number one, I have Devin White's teammate Levante David as my number one linebacker. NFC Defensive Player of the Month in September. There was a reason for that. He's been an incredible player in the league for so long. This year, he finally gets the recognition again. I think he's more of a leader on that defense than Devin White is right now. Give Devin White a few years, and maybe he will be in the same role as Levante David. All I know is the Bucks have an incredible linebacking core because JPP and Shaq Barrett are also still considered outside linebackers. So I think the Bucks have the best linebacking core in the NFL. I think that's hands down
yeah,
because. And of course, Devin White, you can't ignore that playoff game. And I think Devin White just barely missed as well. Um, I think that the Levante David was an even bigger asset to that Bucks defense.
yeah. Well, I got to say, Bucks defense, Bucks front seven is the best because they still have
They
Sue
just got Vita
and
Vea back.
Villa
Ooh.
like that front seven is just insane. But yeah, like we
Dang!
mentioned, the linebackers this year, there's like linebackers this year, there's just another level. Like altogether, they're just so good
Yeah,
that
the
you can
linebackers
argue
got
it
me.
anyway. Like there's like
I'm gonna step it up.
there's like 8 or 9 of them that are all together, just like separated from the rest. That like you could put like mix and match them like however you want. Like you said, Tremaine Edmond, neither of us put him on the list, but he's still up there.
Alex
Like for one
Singleton,
of
we
the
both
best,
talked
like
about.
Alex Singleton, yeah. Roquan Smith, I didn't put him up there, but he's in that list. Like there's so
Jordan
many
Hicks had a
people in
great
that list for
year.
linebacker. Yeah. Uh,
Uh,
Patrick Queen had a great year, but he's not there yet.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Excuse me. All right. For corners now. Adam, I was so close to putting James Bradbury on this list. He literally just made. He was a last second takeout. He was number 5 originally, but he was a last second takeout. I had to consider some more things. Number 5, I put Marshawn Lattimore. Incredible year. Whenever he played Mike Evans, I think he was the reason why Mike Evans could barely ever produce against the Saints. He was a lockdown corner like he is every year. and I don't think interceptions tell the full story. A lot of these guys don't have more than like 2-3 interceptions. There is an outlier to that, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But Marshawn Lattimore had a phenomenal year. And he definitely was a top 5 corner this year. Number 4, you said he's overrated. I think Jalen Ramsey is a top 5 corner, especially in 2020. Proved once again that he can compete with anyone in the league. I mean, of course, he got outran by Devontae Adams in the goal line. I think that was more just a better play call.
Yeah,
In the
that one
last
wasn't
round.
his fault.
That wasn't his fault. I mean,
No.
I don't know. Maybe
Because if you watch it, someone else on the defense was supposed to pick up Adams, but they didn't.
Yeah, yeah. It was a miscommunication. I think Jalen Ramsey is a lockdown corner, and I think it's very hard to dispute that. I don't think he's overrated at all. I think he's perfectly rated. Number 3, I have Jair Alexander. Jair Alexander took a huge step up this year. Also proved to be a lockdown corner. I never thought he would be. I thought he would just kind of be a slot corner who was really good. Absolutely stepped it up. At number 3, I think he deserves all the hype that he gets. And he's definitely a key reason why this Packers defense stepped it up this year as well. Number 2, the only good Big Ten defender in the past few years to ever come out of a Big Ten school. Xavier Howard out of Baylor had 10 picks this year. Incredible against any offense you put him up against, any receiver. 10 picks. That hasn't been done since Antonio Cromartie in 2007. And he
Yeah,
did that on this Dolphins defense where, I mean, where are you going to throw? You got Byron Jones on one side, Xavier Howard on the other side. Xavier Howard's going to snag it every single time. Xavier Howard was originally just kind of a zone guy. He's really stepped up his man coverage. He's been an absolute beast for that Dolphins defense and a piece that they have built around. They are so smart for not trading him when they were starting to clean house, when they were trading out, like Minka. They traded away Kenny Stills and Laramie Tunsil. They are smart for holding on to him, and that reward is paying off, especially with a defensive
yeah.
coach like Brian Flores. That defense is tailored for Xavier Howard to be a lockdown corner, and he is. And number 1 is Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey just did so many things as a corner this year. Marlon Humphrey could force fumbles. He could lay the hit on. He was a lockdown corner. And I just think that he does not get the credit that he deserves. I think Marlon Humphrey is the best corner in the league.
Okay. See, Marlon Humphrey did not have a good. He had a great year, but to me, he was the most targeted receiver corner for a reason. And yes, you could say it's because he went up against the number 1 receiver most of the time, but I don't think he did. If you look at guys like Jalen Ramsey and Jair Alexander, which I do say Jalen Ramsey is overrated, but I'll get into that on my list. They not only do they follow the number 1 corner, but they prevent the ball from even being thrown to them. Marlon Humphrey doesn't do that, and because of that, he gets burned a little too often. And I'm not saying he's bad. I just don't think you can put him over by other guys on this list. My number 5, I have Jalen Ramsey. Great. A lot of people are saying he's best corner in the league. I don't think he should have gotten first team All Pro. I think he's over in that aspect. I think he's a great corner, but it's like Terry McLaurin in my opinion. Great player, but the media gives them too much hype than they deserve.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that comparison. I think DK Metcalf would be a good comparison to
DK Metcalf. Somewhat,
I think Jalen Ramsey actually backs up the hype a little bit more.
He does back it up, but to me, like he's just too much. Like he gets too much love for like a guy that is at times just talk, and at times he's phenomenal, and at times he's just talking. It's like too inconsistent with when he's being the best corner in the league and when he's not even being a top 5 to put him any higher on this list. At number 4, this guy is not on your list, but he just had such a good year. J.C. Jackson. 14 passes defense, 9 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, and he was just especially when Gilmore went down. He had that one bad game against the Bills, but that was just his fault because they did primarily they didn't really have him follow Diggs as much as he should. But J.C. Jackson had a career year. He's an unrestricted free agent, so he's going to get paid. But he was always a big part on that Patriots defense. This year, he took the next level. Filled in when Gilmore went down. 9 interceptions, which was the second most in the league. Just a great year. Now, My number three, my man James Bradbury, huge pickup for the Giants. He missed the game against the Browns. 18 passes defense, 3 interceptions. And might I add, he's a man corner playing in a primarily zone defense, which just shows how good he is. He made plays, phenomenal plays and tackle, like just making open field tackles, taking out the number one man. Like against the Bears, Al Robinson didn't really do that much. Against the Seahawks, DK Metcalf had a somewhat decent game, but like considering James Bradbury wasn't following him the entire game, he did lock up Metcalf somewhat. Like when I say somewhat, DK had like some good plays, but overall Bradbury followed him for the most part when he was on him. Bradbury is number three. My number two, Jair Alexander, 13 passes defense, but he was just such a huge part in the Packers defense this year. Him and, like I said earlier, him and Zadarius Smith, without either of them, or without one of them, this defense and this team is just nowhere where it is now. They're just such a huge part. And my number one, Xavier Howard, 20 pass defense, 10 interceptions, just statistically one of the best seasons in recent memory for a corner. Just an absolute beast. The huge part in that Miami defense. Just, I believe he picked off Patrick Mahomes twice, which is just like he had such a good game, such a good year that he was my number one corner.
I can't agree with you about J.C. Jackson. I just can't do it. Nope. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna agree with you about J.C. Jackson.
9 picks.
I know, but in his multiple interception games, that was when you had people like Stephon Gilmore locking down the number one guy.
Yeah.
And in games when Stephon Gilmore was out, he was kind of I mean, he was obviously incredible this year. You aren't just like a mediocre player and get 9 picks. But I think that picks don't tell the full story, and I don't think that the stats that you listed tell the full story.
So let me show it to you. 14 pass defense and 9 picks. That's a great year. And statistically, it's much better than Jalen Ramsey. Statistically, it's better than Jair Alexander. And I do agree, yeah, it's like you can't just do just the numbers, but you do have someone 13 pass defense and 9 interceptions and not say he's up there for best corners. Now, if you don't want to put him in your top 5, I get that. But you can't say he's not deserving to be up there.
I wouldn't put him in mine. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, but can you say he's deserving? He's deserving.
Sure. Oh, your camera's bugging.
Okay. Am I good?
Yeah, you're good. All right. So are you starting off with the safeties now? I kind of lost.
Yep. I'll take the safeties. Okay.
My safety is chock full of hot takes.
Okay, my number one's a huge hot take, and I think you're going to be on my. I got at number 5 Jamal Adams, 3 pass defense, 9.5 sacks, which was great. But to me, they've served him more as a linebacker, blitzing linebacker, than much of a safety. And at times in the coverage, he's just not there. I think he's a great player. I don't think he was worth the 2 first-round picks that the Seahawks gave up. He also missed a couple games, but like I said, in the passing game, he was not as big as the other guys on this list are. Now, number 4, I got the rookie second-round pick, Jeremy Chin. He had 2 touchdowns in 1 game, just like complete 116 tackles, like just a complete beast, a huge part in that Carolina defense. He showed a lot of future potential. And just had a great rookie year. Number 3, I got arguably the most underrated player on the defense in this year and just in general. He is yet to make a Pro Bowl, Jordan Poyer. He's just such a big part in that Bills defense, just a insane player, does not get the recognition that he should. And number 2, I got Budda Baker. At some point in this year, I was going to say he was the best safety in the league. Then he went quiet for a little bit. But he's just such an overall beast. Like, he was one of the few guys that this year was able to go toe and toe with George Kittle, and George Kittle was healthy. Like he was just such a huge part in that Cardinals defense, and he yeah, he's my number two. It's just a phenomenal year. And with number one, I got Harrison Smith. The main 5 interceptions, 10 passes defense. Just he's been a great safety for his entire career. Had a little bit had a quiet, amazing year this year. He kind of he's just all over the place. There's no one else on that Vikings defense. Maybe Odenigbo and you said Eric Henrys, but I just have Harrison Smith, just really the only experienced guy in that secondary, and made such a big part in helping that team and helping that defense have the have not little, but have the success that it did. Because without him, they would not be anywhere.
So, Adam, what you're telling me right now is you have a type. You have a type of safety that you think is superior to the other safeties. You have two borderline linebackers as your 5 and 4. Sure, they're great at what they do. They're great at what they're asked to do. But when you think of a safety, you have to think of somebody who's versatile, who can cover. There are so many times when Jamal Adams looked silly in coverage. Absolutely silly. He looked lost. He looked like he did not know what he was doing. I don't know how you could have him as a top 5 safety in the league. And
that's the thing. It took a while. I thought you were going to put Jamal. I honestly thought you were putting Jamal Adams higher because there's so many people. There's so many.
No.
That's the thing. I mean,
he's overhated. Obviously, he's incredible at what he does. I think he's overhated, but he gets lost.
What do you mean overhated? He's to me is overrated. To me, if you turn on ESPN, if you watch all the other news, the broadcasting thing, they all are in love with Jamal Adams, and to me, I just don't see it.
I'm talking about the NFL meme pages, bro. The NFL meme pages are relentless. They call him Blitz Boy.
Yeah, no. If you watch what a lot of other people say about him, they're in love with him, and it's to me, he's not worth it.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. That's exactly why I don't have him in my top 5. But my top 5, it's gonna make you go, huh? It's a little similar to yours, and you think that your hot takes are that hot, but believe me, baby, you have no hot takes. You have no original opinions. And my number 5 safety, this is one you're never gonna think of. The most underrated safety in the league, I think, is Jesse Bates of the Bengals. He spearheaded that Bengals defense, man. He was basically one of their only bright spots. He has 3 forced fumbles. He was incredible, man. He's one of the great young talents of the league, and he has only up to go. 2020 was a huge breakout year for him, and I think that you can't go wrong with having Jesse Bates in your top 5. Number 4, I have Minkah Fitzpatrick. The Steelers defense would not be anywhere near it would be without the help of him. I think him over the top. He made Lamar Jackson look like a rookie again. Had an incredible year. I mean, I have a little bit of bias. I had the Steelers defense in my fantasy league and my money league, and they always put up great points. He was always doing fantastic. Number 3, I have Budda Baker. Budda Baker also had a tremendous steps this year. He was definitely deserving of his All-Pro. He would have had a tremendous pick 6 against the Seahawks, but your guy DK Metcalf got him. Whatever. He was just. I think he's the best Cardinals defensive player right now. Especially in 2020 with Patrick Peterson declining more and more. Number 2, I have Harrison Smith. You think it's such a hot take? No, Harrison Smith is the funky headhunter. He is absolutely all over the field, making huge hits, but he also is a ball hawk. He can make plays when he needs to. He is clutch. He can do whatever he wants. And number 1 is Justin Simmons. How do you not have him on your list whatsoever? Justin Simmons for the Broncos was basically their entire defense. I mean, Malik Reed definitely did step up for Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. That's a good duo, but the reason AJ Bouye did not have that good of a year this year. Their corners.
He had a somewhat year.
They had
a lot of injuries.
Not as good as we're used to seeing out of AJ Bouye. Justin Simmons stepped up completely. There's a reason why teams would always run against the Broncos, other than, their run defense was kind of. It's because Justin Simmons was a beast back there. He's probably I think he's the best safety in the league, and I think that he has a very low passer rating when targeted. He is that Broncos defense right now, and he is what is going to lead them to future greatness. He is a building block for the future. Um, yeah, I don't know how you didn't have Justin Simmons on your list whatsoever, but you had people like Jamal Adams on your top 5 list of 2020.
Jamal Adams broke the
Jordan Poyer
record
was
for
actually good
most
though.
most most sacks
I don't
for a
care about
defensive back.
sacks as a safety. That's a linebacker
No, but
trait.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's a hybrid defender, but to me, like you said, he's not that good in the passing. He's not as good in the passing game, which is what's stopping him from being higher.
We're talking about safeties though. Top 5 safety. You want to talk about passing game? You have Jesse Bates. You got the Justin Simmons, man. I mean, I like the Jordan Poyer pick. I do like the Jordan Poyer pick. I think him and Micah Hyde are great in Buffalo, and he was a quick cut. He was not a quick cut. He was. I thought hard about putting him on the list. I just think you can't go wrong with my list. And of course, again, your hybrid linebacker list doesn't hold a candle to my pure goat safety list. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go into rookies. Let's go with the offensive rookies first. Top 5. At number 5, I got CeeDee Lamb. It's painful to say as an Eagles fan, but I think you can agree as a Giants fan. He had some games where he completely disappeared, especially against Washington. I mean, a lot of that you can blame to, having Ben DiNucci thrown in the football. Best quarterback of 2020, by the way. Best name, at least. Ben DiNucci thrown in the ball. But CeeDee Lamb would disappear, but he would have, when he was on, he was on. He showed that this year, he showed that for the future, he's going to be a valuable piece to that Cowboys offense. And quite frankly, I'm scared. Number 4, I still got to go with Joe Burrow. Even though he got hurt late in the year, I still got to put Joe Burrow at number 4. Joe Burrow was having a phenomenal rookie year, picking up basically right where he left off at LSU with, I would say, an inferior offensive mind in Zach Taylor. I mean, Zach Taylor's still a good coach. I think he still needs a little bit more time to prove himself. And without Joe Brady, Joe Burrow still was incredible. Joe Burrow was a leader. Joe Burrow, even though they didn't win a lot, Joe Burrow made guys like T. Higgins on. He put T. Higgins on the map. Put Tyler Boyd as a top tier wide receiver in the league. I think that Joe Burrow definitely did what he was planning to do, and I hope he makes a speedy recovery because he's going to be a. I think he could be a top 5 quarterback next year. Number 3, I put Jonathan Taylor. I mean, it's just because the top 2 guys, you can't really put people above him. Jonathan Taylor was absolutely incredible. As you said, you put him in your top 5 running backs. Number 2, I put Justin Jefferson, and I know I've been kind of dogging on him. It's a little bit of it is jealousy because we could have had him. I hate Howie Roseman, but Justin Jefferson had 1,300 yards, unheard of as a rookie.
1,400.
1,400 yards.
But
Forgive
I
me.
thought to say, okay. Before you say number 1, the reason why I was looking so shocked is that so you had I'm assuming what your number 5 pick your number 1 pick is you had James Robinson as your top 5 running back over Jonathan Taylor, but yet Jonathan Taylor is a better rookie.
Yes. The way I judge rookies in 2020 is how well they're going to do in future years.
No, I judge
James Robinson had
strictly
a
on
great
this
year.
year. Okay. So that is the reason why I was so confused. And let me guess what your number 1 is. Herbert.
No, it's Jalen Reagor. I'm kidding. Yes, of course it's Justin Herbert. Yeah, I mean, I already said what I need to say. I argued passionately for my Sid from Toy Story looking ass boy. But Justin Herbert,
Yeah.
he had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time, and I think he has nowhere to go but up, especially with a new. Actually, no, I don't like Brandon Staley, but that's for another day.
Okay. My number 5, I agree with you, CeeDee Lamb. Some games he completely disappeared, but yet when he showed it, he looked like he has the potential to be a top 5 receiver in the league. He just needs experience. He needs to have a year at Prescott to really show how good he is. But when he was playing well, he was unstoppable. Number 4, I got Chase Claypool, my man from Notre Dame. He was just he completely changed that Steelers offense. 11 total touchdowns, just like you couldn't stop him. I think
Yeah,
you're
I know
just
we
hating
couldn't
on him.
stop him. Yeah, you don't have to remind me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think you're just hating on him for that 4-touchdown game against.
No, I'm hating on him because he's just a fucking. Oh my. Sorry, I cursed.
Because he's Canadian.
Yes, that's the reason I don't like him. No, it's because Whatever. The Browns are gonna get clapped next week. I just also think that he was too inconsistent this year, but whatever.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
entire
dude.
offense was inconsistent.
Number 3, I have Justin Jefferson. He had just such a great year with the Vikings. Phenomenal trade that the Vikings did. Same with the helped both teams. Like that's one of those trades that helps both teams, and both teams are happy with Diggs going to the Bills, and then the Vikings getting Jefferson because of that pick. But yeah, Jefferson 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, just completely changed that Vikings defense. Added a vertical threat, and like you said, maybe Dalvin Cook had an impact on that, but the numbers don't lie.
He's
Justin
just
Jefferson
a
had a
smooth
great
route
game.
runner too, man.
Yeah.
I can't hate on him that much. I mean,
Okay.
he had an incredible year. He was on
Number
my fantasy team.
my number 2, Jonathan Taylor. Number 3 in yards, 11 touchdowns. Just such a great running back. Like I said earlier, he in the beginning he wasn't getting the ball as much, and when he finally got the ball, he just showed how good he is, and just becoming an absolute beast. And then my number 1 rookie, I have Ben Ben Simmons. Ben, no, I have Justin Herbert. Like we said, just had such a great year. I actually have the stats. Broke the record for most passing touchdowns for a rookie with
For,
31.
yeah, he's
Five
got like
rushing touchdowns. Like just
4,331 yards. Crazy.
36.
Oh, my
For,
bad.
yeah, you were
5 yards
close.
off. I was half a
Yeah,
touchdown away.
such a phenomenal year for the rookie. He shows a lot of potential. And yeah, okay. Now defensive rookies. Unless you have something to argue with my
I just
list.
don't. I don't agree with Claypool. And I mean, there was just weeks when he went goose egged. I don't know. That entire I felt weird about the Steelers this year. I don't think they had a top 5 player at any position, even in rookies. I don't think. I'm just
TJ Watt.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, offensively. Sorry, I should have
Yeah,
clarified
I
that.
can
I
say
was
because
about to
you had
pass.
TJ. Yeah.
Minka and TJ Watt. No, I meant offensively. I think Claypool in the future. I don't know. I just don't know what his future holds, and that's kind of how I judged my rookies based off of. I know
Okay.
it was like a 2020 list, but I kind of judged based off the potential they showed rather than what they actually necessarily did.
Okay. My defensive rookies. I'll start with defensive rookies. Number 5, I have Julian Blackmon. Uh, to me, when I was like looking through my research, there weren't that many defensive rookies that really impressed me this year. Like, there's Chase Young, Jeremy Chan. There's a bunch of guys there, but like after you got like the top 3 or 4, there's no guys that really impressed me. So like, I had to put Julian Blackmon. Didn't have like he did show like potential to be a solid player, not an all-star, but all pro. But he definitely like showed some potential. When number 4 and number 3, I kept switching between them. I couldn't decide which way to go. But I finally decided my number 4 is Patrick Queen. Just in the beginning of the year, he was looking phenomenal. Started to kind of fall apart towards the end, but like he just looks like such a great player. The Ravens got a steal with him. He's going to be a phenomenal player for them soon. I had the stats: 1 interception, 2 forced fumbles, 2 pass deflections, or whatever it's called, 105 tackles and 3 sacks. My number 3, who I had kind of tied with Patrick Queen, Antoine Winfield, absolute beast of the safety, very young, inexperienced, but really took leadership for the
Got a nice forced
secondary
fumble
and
on Jared Cook.
yeah, in Tampa. Just played a great year. Uh, Not much I could really say.
Todd
Chase at
Bowles.
number two, I have Chase Young. His numbers really did not impress me. Everyone was in love with him, but like he did have a great year. But to me, I just don't know if you could put him at number 1. He had 7.5 sacks. Did
Five
have
and a
a
half sacks.
touchdown.
Wait, no, did
No,
he?
I have
No, he.
7.
Sorry, I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about an earlier week.
Yeah, no, that when I was doing my research, one I saw 5.5 and I saw 7.5, so I took 7.5. But I'll still either way I'll keep him at number 2. And my number 1, I have Jeremy Chin. I love this guy. He had 2 defensive touchdowns in one game, back-to-back snaps, but he just was a game changer for the Panthers. 116 tackles. I talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
I think Chase Young will end up being the best defensive player in that draft. But I think this year specifically, Jeremy Chin had a better year.
Not bad, not bad. We actually had pretty similar lists as well. I didn't include Antoine Winfield on mine. I included another dude who I think a lot of people are sleeping on, but he definitely impressed me at least. And I don't know why, but he has a little aura about him, and he's my number five. I mean, yeah, a solid list. I still think Chase Young is the number one. Spoiler alert. He's just super athletic, and in the future, I mean, even this year, he like scored touchdowns. He was making plays, making, even as a rookie, people were always looking at him, and he was a Pro Bowler. I as much as I hate on him and I think like he is overhyped, I think he was the best rookie as well. At the same time, I can acknowledge it. I can live in reality. At number five, I have AJ Terrell. Everyone was questioning it when he was drafted in the first round, and typically rookie corners don't do well in their first year. But for what he was asked to do and the amount of pressure that was put on him, day one, week one, he showed out. He definitely showed that he was worth that first round pick. I don't have the stats on hand, but I remember like I think in the Broncos game he had a very good game. He isn't the type who is flashy and will make a bunch of huge plays, but he does things right, and I think that he has a solid foundation to build on for the future. Number four, I also put Patrick Queen, athletic beast. Uh, I mean, there's not much else to say. You said a lot of what I had to say, and we had him in the same spot, so that's convenient. Julian Blackmon, at number three, he was like the early pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Chase Young had a good start to the season, but I think Julian Blackmon had a better start. And I think Jonathan Gannon in Indy did a great job, and now he's going to Philly, hopefully, if Mike Lombardi's right. Some clown named Mike Lombardi. Um, I think that Julian Blackmon had an incredible rookie year, and I think that he did much better than anyone anticipated. He was a second round pick, I think, um, and he definitely showed why he was. I think his stats, his athleticism, his energy really came to the table. Um, Jeremy Chin is my number two for obvious reasons, especially what he did in the Vikings game. Two defensive touchdowns, incredible. Um, but I couldn't put him over Chase Young. I think Chase Young did a lot more than meets the eye. I know he was a little inefficient at times, but him coming to that defense really for some reason brought it alive, brought it into a gear that Ryan Kerrigan can never bring it to. I mean, Montez Sweat was on the team last year. All these players were on the team. Nobody was talking about Washington as a scary defense. And I don't think offseason acquisitions like Ronald Darby really did that for them. Or Cam Curl. I mean, they played well this year, but I think that's mainly due to their front four being absolutely dominant. I mean, obviously, I have firsthand experience as an Eagles fan with how dominant Chase Young can be. He was when I knew Carson Wentz was screwed up in week one. He was cousin Chase Young, just being an absolute wrecking ball. And I think Chase Young was the best rookie this year. Yeah. Um, and that'll be it, guys. Thank you for listening. You probably disagree. Our takes are terrible. Um, Adams are worse than mine, even though he probably did a little bit more research. I just have a better feel for the game.
I'm a
Obviously,
numbers guy. I'm a numbers guy.
you're a nerd. That's what he's trying to say.
I'm a
He's using
numbers guy.
euphemisms now. But if you enjoyed it,
J-
again,
J- Jish doesn't know how to read numbers, so that's why he just
they're
didn't do any
hard, man.
research.
They're
He
very hard to
can't read.
read. They're very hard to read. So if you really enjoy this video, I recommend that you subscribe, like, do whatever. It really helps us out, and we'd love to keep making content. If you have any ideas, you can drop it in the comments below. Um, but with that, we bid you adieu, and we'll talk to you again
Thank you for
soon.
listening.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Peace.